Welcome to Meadow Lake Mechanical Pulp Online Safety Orientation. There will be a short quiz at the end of this presentation. Safety first. Your right to refuse dangerous work and your right to participate are part of the Saskatchewan Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations. Your right to know comes under federal WIM-S regulations. Meadow Lake Mechanical Pulp strives to meet or exceed all applicable legislation in our loss control manual and safety policies and procedures. We are committed to protecting our employees, contractors, visitors, and our facility from harm or loss. Your good ideas through your leadership or the Occupational Health and Safety Committee are welcome in helping us sustain and improve the safety on site. Recent Occupational Health Committee minutes, incident and accident reports for the previous months, and upcoming safety events are all communicated on the bulletin boards. Smoke or vape only in designated areas. These include west of P2 Towers outside, west of stores outside, south of wood room outside by stairs, south side of S and R west of contractors lunch room outside, east deck S and R, west of training center, north of Chemical Bay, west of main mill warehouse outside. It is mandatory that all contractors, vendors, and guests sign in and out when entering and exiting the Meadow Lake Mechanical Pulp site. Please sign in and out at the same location. Book locations are main mill reception, stores, wood room lunch room, steam and recovery control room, main mill control room. Job hazard analysis or pre-job risk assessment. A pre-job risk assessment is required to be filled out before starting any work. Mandatory PPE must always be worn outside of lunchrooms and washrooms. CSA-approved hard hat with brim facing forward, CSA safety glasses with side shields or prescription glasses with side shields. Contact lenses are not allowed without special permission. Hearing protection in areas with a noise level over 85 dBA. CSA safety boots must have 8-inch ankle protection with green triangle and chemical resistant. High visibility vest or coveralls with reflective stripes. Cut and puncture resistant gloves. PPE standard for boots, following the CSA Z19509 standard. Outer cover such as steel toe cap, full grain leather boot and tongue, no woven synthetic fiber material, or must have chemical/liquid resistant covering, puncture resistant sole, dielectric protection sole, medium thread soles to prevent slips and falls, heat and water resistant soles, boot tongue stitched to sides of boots to prevent liquid intake. Employees working in the wood room or debarking area must wear 8-inch high safety boots with metatarsal protection. PPE requirements. All employees, contractors, and visitors who enter the site are required to wear cut-resistant gloves with a minimum level of a 4 at all times. Outside of lunchrooms, control rooms, washrooms, and office areas. Those who are exposed to high potential cut hazards must wear A6 to A9 rated cut-resistant gloves and sleeves. During winter months, it is mandatory to wear ice cleats when outside. They are available to all. Hard hats. Hard hats must be worn with the brim or bib facing forward to protect workers' face from falling objects and liquids. When welding, wearing the bib backwards is acceptable, but must be put back on forwards immediately afterward. For inserts, the slider style is no longer permitted. Only inserts with ratchet straps are allowed. Make sure to check your hard hat's expiration date. It is good for 5 years after the manufacturer's date. The areas needed to wear a hard hat are the following. All operational areas maintenance shops, landfill, inside the cab of lift trucks. Locker to locker. Exceptions are control rooms, office areas, lunchrooms, cars or trucks, heavy equipment that have a fully enclosed cab such as a crane or loader, or similar mobile equipment that can't expose a worker's head to contact with the cab frame if in a collision. Utility knives. Fixed blade or manually retractable blade knives are not authorized. Workers must use a self-retractable spring-loaded utility knives. They are stocked in stores. Goggles must be worn in the chemical storage area. Watch for signs in other areas. Face shields must be used when using portable or stationary grinders. Also, when handling chemicals, review the SDS for face and eye protection requirements. Gloves must be appropriate for the hazard. Rubber for chemicals or hot liquids. Kevlar for sharp objects, etc. Safe work permits. These are mandatory for all contractor work on site. They can be obtained from the main mill control room, finishing line 4-day shack, S&R control room, the wood room lunch room. Accident and incident reporting. What must be reported to your supervisor as soon as possible? All near misses, safety hazards, safety concerns, equipment or property damage, environmental spills, fires, injuries, both first aids and medical aids, lost time incidents, work refusals, accidents. All incidents will be investigated to prevent reoccurrence. First aid room. The first aid room is located on the second floor of the main mill, between the elevator and stairs. It is alarmed in both the main mill and steam and recovery control rooms. Emergency response personnel will respond promptly after you walk in the main door. Safety showers and eye wash stations. Be familiar with their locations. Do not hesitate to use these if you suspect you have been sprayed by chemical. They are alarmed in both the main mill and steam and recovery control rooms. In a mill emergency, dial 300 from any site phone in stairwells, control rooms or offices. Give the station number of the phone you are calling from. Give details on the nature of the emergency, location, number of injured, etc., so that this can be fully communicated to the response personnel. Emergency alarm system. We have silent pull alarms on the fire stations, and they ring in the main control room. An operator will check the area before the control room sounds the evacuation sirens. Evacuate if the siren is in your area. Evacuation routes and muster points. The muster points are main mill parking lot, southeast corner. Steam and recovery, south side of S&R, near the contractor's lunchroom. Wood room, east of the scale house. In an evacuation, walk to the nearest muster point. Use the stairs, not the elevator. Gather your crew and do a head count. Report those missing to your supervisor. If there is an emergency response drill that includes an evacuation, all workers must evacuate their area of work to the nearest muster point. Traffic control plan. No unauthorized traffic in restricted areas. All pedestrian and mobile traffic must yield and make eye or radio contact with the mobile equipment operator before proceeding through the area. Only required and necessary traffic is permitted in the vicinity of the wood room, especially near the chip pile. Speed limit on site is 30 km per hour. Seatbelt use is mandatory on site. Chemical storage area. Chemical goggles are mandatory in this area. The chemical storage area consists of hazardous chemicals which are used on our site. This is a restricted area. Please do not enter this area unless you are required to do any work in this area. Pulp warehouse. The pulp warehouse is also a restricted area. Please do not walk through unless absolutely necessary. Use the buzzer provided at the northwest and southwest entrances to notify operators that you are walking through. Use the yellow painted path while walking through the warehouse. Steam and recovery. You must sign in and out at the steam and recovery control room when entering the recovery boiler area. All registered pressure vessels that are brought on site must first be inspected by steam and recovery. Mobile equipment. Only competent, trained operators may operate loaders, forklifts, genie booms, or any other power mobile equipment on site. Seatbelt use is mandatory when using this equipment. Equipment lockout procedures. Lockout boards will be shown to you by your supervisor or by operations. Working under the lockout. Always review all details on the lockout sheet. The items or equipment locked out. The equipment number. The third digit indicates the line number. Against the lockout sheet and field equipment. That the work order number on the lockout sheet matches your written or verbal instruction. The seal number on the lockout sheet matches the one on the lockout board. The lockbox number written on the lockout sheet matches the lockbox the sheet is in. A competent person must verify that the equipment and/or systems to be worked on are in a zero-energy state. This is completed by jogging local jog and stop switches and visually checking valves and breakers before work begins. A competent person can be the first worker. Ask a qualified operator for assistance if you are unsure of the equipment's location. The first worker must initial next to each verified item and sign at the bottom of the lockout sheet. Write your name and lock number on the sheet. Subsequent workers must apply their personal locks to the lockout box, but must ensure zero-energy state. Verification is always the right of a subsequent worker. If a personal lock is already in place and work has commenced, before using local jog switches, all workers working under the lockout must be informed and work ceased. Altered lockout. This is an example of an altered lockout sheet. It must be reviewed and initialed by the appropriate supervision, then marked with a red altered lockout sticker. When the seal is broken on a lockout to remove locks for any purpose, the lockout sheet must be reprinted and the lockout verified again. Applying a personal lock. Apply your personal lock to the lockout box, leaving the last hole on the scissors open. Personal locks. Locks must be clearly in control of the person the lock has been assigned to and ownership identified. It is for your personal protection. MLMP employees are assigned their own personal locks. They are gold in color and engraved with their employee number. Contractors must sign out purple personal locks from stores. These are property of MLMP and must be returned. A charge of $25 will be issued if not returned before agreed time and date. Completion of job. Upon the completion of the job, each person must remove their lock from the lock box and check off on the sheet that their lock is unlocked. The last person to remove their lock from the lockbox must inform the control room of the job status. If the job cannot be completed, get your supervisor to have a departmental lock placed before the last personal lock is removed. It is important that if you have any questions regarding working under a lockout, stop and ask a trained qualified operator for assistance. Line break permits. to protect employees from an unexpected release of hazardous materials while opening or disconnecting process piping or equipment that contains or may have contained hazardous materials. This includes but is not limited to lines, fittings, valves, pumps, vessels, and tanks. This procedure applies to all piping on the MLMP site, which contains or may have contained a hazardous material. Workers with the potential to be exposed to the contents of a line, pump, or vessel must be aware of the potential presence of hazardous materials and the temperature of the contents. The permit must be posted at job location. It must also be completed before work begins. Hot work permits. These are required for any temporary operation, away from designated shop areas, involving open flames or producing heat or sparks. This includes but is not limited to brazing, cutting, grinding, soldering, and welding. Hot work permits can be obtained from the main mill control room, finishing line 4-day shack, steam and recovery control room, and the wood room lunchroom. Fire watch. The purpose of fire watch is to provide continuous presence where hot work is being done and through lunch and breaks. To wet down an area when appropriate prior to hot work commencing. To keep proper rated fire extinguisher within 9 meters of any hot work. To watch and prevent fires both from starting and getting out of control, and to call for assistance. To follow what is written on the hot work permit, monitor the area for an hour after the hot work is completed, and sign it in the fire watch sign-off box. Cranes and rigging. Only a designated, trained operator who is competent and qualified shall operate a crane. All rigging is to be done by those competent and trained. A signal person must always be present. Stay out from suspended loads by heeding the yellow flashing lights above doorways and other locations or chained-off areas, as well as the horn on overhead traveling cranes. Confined space entry. Confined space and hazardous confined spaces are defined under Saskatchewan OHS regulations. All spaces must be atmospheric tested for O2, LEL, H2S, and CO levels by a competent person prior to entry. This person hangs a yellow confined space entry and rescue permit at the entrance, which must be completed before entry. A safety watch with no other duties must be positioned at all times at the entrance. Workers' names must be documented prior to entering a confined space. When either self-contained breathing apparatus must be worn, and/or the entry is from the top, a parachute-type harness will be worn, attached to a lifeline and tripod for purpose of a non-entry rescue. Fall protection. Wear full-body harness and shock-absorbing lanyard at all times while on scissor lifts or JLG lift, outside a perimeter guard, and if the potential exists to fall more than 10 feet from a temporary installation or 4 feet from a permanent installation. All workers must be trained in the use of fall protection equipment before working in an area where this equipment must be used. A written fall protection plan form must be completed and readily available before work begins on site where the risk of falling exists. This plan is located on the MLMP web and must be posted in the corresponding control or lunch room before work begins. WIMS 2015. Read labels on controlled products and markings on process piping and vessels. SDS are located on MSDS Online, which is a computerized SDS management system. There is a link to MSDS Online on the MLMP web. All chemicals brought onto the MLMP site require an SDS for the SDS management system. WIMS 2015 labels. Supplier label requires product identifier, hazard pictograms, signal words, hazard statements, precautionary statements, supplier identifiers. Workplace label requires. Product identifier, safe handling precautions, reference to SDS. Safety data sheets are an essential component of WIM-S 2015. They have 16 sections. Employers and workers use the information on an SDS to protect themselves from hazards and for safe handling and use. Environmental awareness. The site is ISO 14001 certified, and as such all employees, including contractors, have certain responsibilities. You must understand how your activities may impact the environment and take reasonable steps to reduce those impacts. For instance, does your task generate hazardous waste? Does it include releases to the air, ground, or water? To reduce impacts, please ensure any spills, releases, or other environmental hazards are reported to the area supervisor, control room, or environmental coordinator. Dial extension 300 for major spills and extension 9620 for minor spills or concerns from any site phone. ISO 14001 policy. Please take a moment to read and understand the environmental policy. Policies are posted on bulletin boards and the company's website. Environmental waste disposal. It is extremely important to sort and dispose of waste appropriately. The site has a waste disposal policy that must be followed. Highlights include separation of hazardous waste and non-hazardous waste and disposal in appropriate bins. Bin stations have been set up throughout the mill. All bins are labeled stating the type of acceptable waste. Quick reference guides and maps have been posted throughout the mill. Please do your best to dispose of waste appropriately. For any questions or concerns, contact the environmental coordinator at extension 9620. Environmental waste disposal. Waste stream classification, non-hazardous waste. Domestic waste, recyclables, scrap metal, wood, rinsed chemical hoses and totes. All chutes are for non-hazardous waste only. Environmental waste disposal. Waste stream classification, hazardous waste oil, oily or greasy rags, and other similar materials. Grease tubes, oil jugs and hoses, aerosol cans, pressurized gases, batteries, tires, vehicle fluid jugs, etc. All of these materials must be disposed of in appropriately labeled bins. Environmental oil waste. Waste oil must be disposed of in the site's waste oil tank located by the North Breezeway. Oily or greasy rags and leather gloves, absorbent pads, and other oil-soaked debris must be disposed of in the appropriate bin or dumpster. Plastic or nitrile gloves must go into the domestic waste bin. Empty oil pails must be drained and stacked. Empty jugs must go into the appropriate labeled bin. Waste grease should be collected and stored in 5-gallon buckets and stacked on a pallet by the latency chest. For additional information, consult a lube tech or millwright. Radiation safety. Nuclear gauges are present in various locations around the mill and steam and recovery buildings. The presence of a nuclear gauges is denoted by signage featuring a black or pink trefoil on a yellow background. Nuclear gauges use cesium-137 at various intensity and activity levels. All gauges are shielded and outfitted with shutter mechanisms to reduce radiation levels to safer levels. Personnel must know personal dose control practices as per the ALARA principle. ALARA stands for as low as reasonably achievable. This is a regulatory requirement to keep personnel and environmental exposure levels as low as reasonably achievable. By using time, distance, and shielding. Radiation safety. Dose control practices, ALARA. Time, the less time personnel are exposed to a radiation source, the lower dosage received. Distance, greater the distance, lower dosage received. Distance is the second most effective dose control measure. Shielding, high-density steel or lead is our engineered control measure and primary defense against radiation exposure. Effective shielding is the best dose control measure. Damaged gauges or source holders. If you notice or suspect a damaged gauge, stay back at least 5 meters from the damaged unit. Distance is the most effective method of dose control after shielding. Dial 300 or contact the main control room by radio for immediate assistance. Secure the area until help arrives. Radiation safety. Radiation source lockout procedures. There are specific lockout sheets for nuclear gauges. All lockouts must be verified by an EI technician. All persons entering the vessel must complete the bottom portion of the lockout sheet. Should an exposure event occur, we must know who was exposed and the duration to calculate dosage and provide medical aid if necessary. You can reduce personal exposure by following all confined space, lockout and job procedures. If a vessel is outfitted with a nuclear gauge, it is your responsibility to ensure the device has been locked out prior to entry. For questions or concerns, contact the MLMP Radiation Safety Officer at extension 9620. Scaffolds and ladders. Only competent persons may make adjustments to any scaffolding. A red, yellow, green system shall be used on scaffolding. Yellow tags should be read and precautionary instructions followed while on the scaffold. Green means safe to use. Red means stay off. Inspect all scaffolding before use. Do not use a damaged ladder. Inspect before using. Ensure that it has non-slip feet and it is positioned correctly. Barricades. Who is responsible? The individual performing the task or tasks in the area. Where there is a potential of someone being injured by falling objects, open trenches, etc. The area must be properly roped off, flagged off or barricaded. Red danger ribbon is used to flag off area where entry is prohibited to all personnel, except those authorized by their immediate supervisor. Only personnel with their name on the tags may enter the area. Yellow caution ribbon is used to flag off areas where caution is required, but it does not restrict traffic. Tags must be completed and attached to the ribbon with full details of the hazards. Tags must be dated and have the name of the person who placed the ribbon clearly indicated. Tags and ribbons are to be checked at least every 24 hours and dates changed, and/or new tags hung. Flagging and tags are available in stores. Housekeeping. Housekeeping is everyone's responsibility. Housekeeping starts when the job starts. No job is complete until the work area is cleaned up. Hazards. All contractors and employees are responsible to report unsafe acts and/or conditions observed immediately to the supervisor. Safety policy. Please take a moment to read and understand the site's safety policy. Policies are posted on the bulletin boards and company website. Harassment. MLMP is committed to a healthy, harassment-free work environment for all our employees and contractors. Harassment is illegal and will not be tolerated. Drugs and alcohol have no place at the work site. Never bring illicit drugs or alcohol on the mill site. If you are suspected of being impaired, you will be removed from site, and your supervisor will be notified. Reminders. You need a safe work permit for every job. A lockbox needs a lock on it, until every task is done. If a job cannot be completed, get your supervisor to have a departmental lock placed before the last personal lock is removed. Minimum PPE is safety glasses, hearing protection, reflective vest, hard hat, and safety boots. First aid room is on the second floor, in the main mill on the north end. For emergency, dial 300. Site orientation test. Please follow the link to complete your test. This concludes the Meadow Lake Mechanical Pulp Site orientation. Thank you for completing this part of your onboarding. We look forward to working with you.